Hi, I'm Mitch Burzon of the Burzon Law Group, a personal injury and medical malpractice firm representing clients on Long Island and throughout the greater New York metropolitan area. I'm going to tell you about a medical malpractice case I handled in New York City, in which a doctor not only made a fatal mistake that ended up costing a patient's life, but who lied to the patient's family and to the courts in an attempt to hide a mistake. My clients were the family of a young woman, age 34, who had passed away from undiagnosed breast cancer. The woman's husband was now a single father of 3 kids and wondered why his wife's breast cancer was never diagnosed or treated, despite repeated visits to a primary care physician. The symptoms his wife had experienced were all typical and classic of advancing breast cancer: weight loss, fatigue, changes to her skin and affect, and so on. The doctor treated her with no knowledge whatsoever that she had cancer. And despite the fact that none of the doctor's recommendations, diet, exercise, seemed to help, she never referred her to a specialist, never thought to send it to an oncologist, never performed any of the most basic diagnostic tests, such as an MRI, that would have identified the cancer in its earlier stages. The breast cancer, unfortunately, was not discovered until the autopsy was done. The doctor's negligence in this case was already bad enough, but then she added insult to injury in a shameful attempt to cover her own hide. Rather than acknowledge her mistake and face the consequences with any sort of dignity, this doctor went into the patient's medical records and flat out changed them. She went back and inserted repeated diagnosis of breast cancer, none of which was true, and made notations that the patient had refused recommendations for chemotherapy and other treatments. The doctor made references that the patient had insisted on following natural and homeopathic remedies to combat her breast cancer. Again, none of this was true. When the woman's husband came to me, he was understandably outraged and confused. He couldn't understand what could be done to hold the doctor accountable, not only for her failure to diagnose, but for completely and unethically falsifying his late wife's medical records. After we subpoenaed the medical records, I consulted with a handwriting expert. We were suspicious about the entries. We obtained a court order and was able to determine that all references through our expert to the breast cancer diagnosis and the refusal of the patient to undergo traditional chemotherapy treatment was false. All these entries were entered after the doctor got sued. Once the doctor was confronted with his forensic medical expert opinion, the doctor caved, and the case settled. Had this doctor not done that, she would have been forced to take the stand, either admit to falsifying her records or face the consequences of vigorous cross-examination, or more likely would have invoked the Fifth Amendment to protect herself against self-incrimination. And there's a strong probability that the presiding judge in this case would have referred this matter to the Queens County District Attorney for criminal prosecution. So this doctor, when forced to deal with reality that she had been caught falsifying medical records, quickly settled the case and ended, to some extent, the misery this poor family had to endure. Without the help of an experienced medical malpractice attorney and a top-notch forensic handwriting expert, the results that we obtained would not have been attainable. Again, I'm Mitch Burzon of the Burzon Law Group, and I thank you for listening.